So, President Trump gave an interview to Glenn Beck yesterday, and they talked about a number of topics that are of interest. And I'm going to play you an excerpt of that interview, a couple of topics that are addressed there. One of them is the state of the supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, a topic that we've discussed on this channel and what the implications are. And he also talked about the Iranian people. Glenn asked him about the Iranian people and whether or not they could get some weapons so that they could rise up against the regime. And that's also an interesting clip that we're going to address. So let's get into this clip here. Here we go. Here's President Trump with Glenn Beck.
Of all places is reporting, and this is starting to become commonplace, that the Ayatollah is dead. Is the Ayatollah dead? And is there a way to win this war? I mean, really win this war and have them unconditionally surrender without the people rising up who don't have any guns. So is he dead? And where are we on the war?
I don't think he's dead. He was very seriously wounded. The left side of his body, the arm, the leg, the whole thing. He was very seriously wounded, but I don't think he's dead. And if he is, they're putting on a pretty good show because they talk about, going back to talk to him all the time, to get a final blessing on things. But, you make a deal with them. It's like it's not the most honorable group. I will tell you that. And, we have the Strait open. We took out 22 boats last night. We have people coming in. The blockade, our Navy has been unbelievable. Our military has been unbelievable, the combination. And our financial strength, we built it up so much like you wouldn't believe in a year and a half. Our financial strength is unbelievable. And those things are going toward a very big victory. We had the victory in Venezuela, and we're going to have a big victory here very soon.
Okay, let's talk about this. So President Trump is asked if he's alive or dead. He says he believes he's alive and that he was very severely injured. And then he starts talking about how well the financial warfare is going. And there's a connection between those two things, but I don't think it's the one that President Trump intended, which is this economic warfare is wonderful. Go ahead. I think it's great. I'm in favor of anything that weakens the Iranian regime. However, as I've said many times, it's built on the assumption that there is some sort of breaking point at which the people running the regime will lose control because the economy gets so bad, or maybe through some secondary, that because the economy gets so bad, the people finally rise up, even though they might get gunned down in the streets, which we'll get to more in a few minutes. That's also not so, it's not so clear that that's going to work. Remember, the people at the top of the regime, they're not starving. They have plenty of food. They have plenty of, they have everything. They're not the ones who are starving. It's the people who are starving. So he's talking about how well the economic blockade is working. We had a great victory in Venezuela. We'll have one in Iran. These are two completely different situations. The victory in Venezuela was over Marxist tyrants who want money and power. And here you're dealing with, fanatical 12er Shiites. And it's also a very different scale. Whatever. There's that. Again, I'm happy with the economic warfare. I think it's great. But his comments on Mojtaba bring to mind what I said about Mojtaba last month. I wrote a column in the Jerusalem Post about this, and I also made a video about it. Well, it wasn't just about Mojtaba, but I talked about a number of moves that the Americans could make, a number of things the Americans could do that would really weaken the Iranian regime and actually bring about victory, none of which involve putting American troops on the ground. And one of the suggestions I made was that the Americans should demand a public verification that Mojtaba Khamenei is alive and functioning. And my reasoning went like this. My reasoning was, it's true from our perspective in terms of who we're negotiating with. If we're negotiating, we don't really care if the guy's alive or dead. But it's extremely important to them. It's extremely important to the Iranians, to the regime itself, that everyone believed that Mojtaba Khamenei is alive. And because it's so important to them, that alive and functioning, that because it's so important to them, is exactly why the Americans should press for verification. And the logic that they could offer, it's very simple. You Iranians keep telling us that every decision you make has to be approved of or rubber stamped by the supreme leader. We don't know who we're really negotiating with. So we're not going to have any talks with anyone, no mediators or anything, unless you prove that he's alive. Now, I'm not saying that they should do that now, because now there are no negotiations. But the Americans could certainly lean into this issue and put out, deepen the skepticism about whether or not he's alive, because it will have a real impact. It'll have more impact than what they're doing economically, in my opinion. It'll have more impact than bombing anything, in my opinion, because ultimately the only thing that will actually bring down this regime is the Iranian people and and destabilizing the regime. Trump still believes, and he could be right, there could be some breaking point that's undetermined that we don't know when we're going to hit, but maybe there isn't. Trump believes that there's a breaking point that the economic pressure will lead to, that will cause instability in the regime enough that it either capitulates or collapses. But I believe that you could get to that same you could destabilize the regime in other ways, and that's what that whole piece that I wrote was about. But I want to drill down a little further on this Mojtaba thing. Let's take a look at the Atlantic piece that Glenn Beck was referring to. I'm just going to read you a few excerpts from it. Is Mojtaba Khamenei dead? So just a few excerpts here. Iran Wire, a London-based opposition outlet, reports that not a single cabinet member has met with Mojtaba since he became supreme leader. Not even Mojtaba's close friends and relatives have seen him. Fewer than 5 people have met with Mojtaba since his ascent to power. Mohammad Hussein Khoshvat, a former official and relative of Mojtaba's, told me due to security precautions. But the totality of Mojtaba's invisibility and a recent decline in statements from his office have set Tehran abuzz with new rumors of his death. Some sources inside and close to the government speculated to me that Mojtaba recently died from the injuries that he had sustained in February. And irrespective of his actual status, the uncertainty might have major implications for Iran. Quote, I believe Mojtaba has either passed away or is dead, a staffer at a government institution in Tehran told me, citing the tailing off of even indirect communication from the leader to the outside world, meaning it's gone totally silent. At least 2 other government officials told me the same. One said that he believed Mojtaba died or became brain dead earlier this month. 2 sources in the Iranian government recently told Iran Wire that word had spread among those at the highest level of the regime that Mojtaba was doing very poorly and could die at any moment. Now, this family member then tried to say, no, this is all propaganda, but look at what he says. Khoshvat assured me that Mojtaba is definitely alive. The rumors about the leader's death are, quote, part of a psychological war hoping to demoralize Iran's officials and its people for them to give up the pressures and threats of America. For them to give up to the pressures and threats of America, he said. He added that the rumors also aim to embolden Iranians opposed to the regime, giving them courage to come to the streets so that the plan of the U.S. and Israel can be realized. Look at what he just said. He just made my point for me. He just confirmed what I've been saying. I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm saying that to zero in on how the Americans are not handling this exactly as they should. He just said that if it becomes the prevailing belief or it becomes verified that Mojtaba is not functioning or is dead, it will embolden the Iranian people and give them courage to come out into the streets. So if that's the case, then this is exactly what the Americans should be doing. It doesn't cost you anything. Lean into it. Say that you believe that he's dead. Play the propaganda war, or just demand that you see him. Say, we will not kill him. We promise you we will not kill him, but we want to see him. We want to meet with him. Or just put out there, we don't believe you that he's alive. Lean into the doubts. Embolden the people. Is there anything more in here I wanted to read? No, that's it. So this is very significant. If these rumors are growing, meaning this is not a static situation. They're saying that in the last month, it's gone radio silent there, and there's no more messages coming out of his office. And the author of this piece, Arash Azizi, spoke to multiple people in the regime who said to him that there's a belief that he's dead now. If this starts spilling out to the people more, as it says in the piece, it will embolden them. This is huge. Let's go back to Trump's comments. You understand my point, right? Which is this is an easy way. Look, let me back up. My real point is that if you want to defeat the Iranians or get them to capitulate, whatever your goal is, if you want to achieve these objectives, if you want to get to victory, you have to get into the head of your enemy, and you have to also think about how they define defeat. What do they fear most? You can't just define it on your own terms. And that's what the Americans are still not 100% doing right. They still think that economics rules the day. And that's why it's so frustrating. It's great. Look, again, I'm all in favor of blockade, economic warfare, D-Day, whatever you want to call it. Wonderful. Will it work? Maybe. I don't know. But even if it works, it'll work in a very long, drawn-out, indirect way. If you go after the regime itself, that's how you can actually win. And this relates to another clip, another piece of this interview. Let's pick it up where we left off.
Can we? I mean, because these people are not. It's not like you're negotiating with Western-minded people. These people want chaos and death and everything else. Has there been any talk anywhere of anybody, I'm not saying us, supplying the people with the ability to fire back? Because you've got to get the 80% of the people to stand up. Do you foresee them being able to stand up in the future and finish this regime?
Right. They say this.
Okay, hold on. Before we get to Trump's answer, notice what Glenn asked him. Glenn is asking him about whether it's on the horizon in any way that someone will get weapons to these people. That's the question he asks him.
So surprised that the people aren't fighting back. But Glenn, if you were in that position, and you're a brave guy, I've watched your whole career. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. You're a brave guy, but I don't think you'd be standing out there when they have a machine gun nest. But, they have really snipers at the tops of buildings, and people go out to protest, and they get hit, and they don't have to hit many. But when you see 5 or 6 or 10 people go down, and you have 100,000 or 200,000 people, they leave. No, I don't care who you are. They leave.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to protest when you have people that are willing to shoot you and kill you. And that's why they're not protesting. And there is a chance because they have become very much weakened. Their Navy is, as you know, totally gone. Their Air Force is totally gone. Their soldiers, many of their soldiers aren't being paid. They have 300, I think 300, I heard 90%. I think it's 300% inflation. Their monetary, their money is almost valueless now. I mean, they're not doing very well. And, I would have to, and I could have told you the same thing, not as strongly, but 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and I'd have to read the New York Times saying how well they're doing. They're not actually saying that anymore, which is hard to believe. I'm surprised they don't continue to say it. But, there was so much fake news for that. Because right from the beginning, from the B-2 bombers a little more than a year ago where we knocked out the nuclear to the present, we have really dominated, really, truly dominated.
Okay. Let's take a look at what Trump just said there, right? He didn't answer the question. The question Glenn Beck asked him was about the possibility of getting weapons into the hands of these people. Trump went on to explain why they're not coming out to protest because they'll get killed. Right, because they don't have weapons. And how you wouldn't go protest either. They're snipers. The IRGC is ready to kill the protesters. So this is another one. This goes back to another one of the recommendations I made in that column that I talked about. One of my recommendations was call the Iranian people back out into the streets and provide air cover for them using drones or helicopters, or ask the Israelis to do it, who said they would. You see, or let me back up. Here's what I'm really getting at. I'm not even talking about this or that suggestion of what to do. I'm talking more about Trump's response here. It again reveals that what he's focused on, how he defines victory, is not what will actually defeat. It's not how the other side defines their defeat, right? What did he just say? Right after he finished giving the answer about the Iranian people who, if they come out, they'll get slaughtered, he then pivoted to saying, we've destroyed their navy, they have 300% inflation, et cetera, et cetera. All the ways that America thinks of victory, that we destroyed their navy and we've caused them economic hardship. But those aren't the things that the Iranian regime is most afraid of. What they're most afraid of is their people. So I want to play you a clip of President Trump. He's just talking about how the IRGC has snipers and they'll kill people, right? I'm going to play you a clip of President Trump from day one of the war. This is a piece of the speech that he gave, that 8-minute speech that he gave, announcing the launch of Epic Fury on February 28th. I want you to take a look at this clip.
Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or, in the alternative, face certain death. So, lay down your arms, you will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass.
Okay, stay inside your homes, but this is the moment for action. What he basically is saying, stay inside your homes. We're going to create the conditions for you to take over take back control of your government, meaning when the time is right. That's right. That's what he's telling them. That's what he's telling them. I think about this clip every day. When I think about the Iranian people, I think about this clip and what Trump said here. And at the beginning of it, where he's talking to the IRGC, to the Iranian police, and saying, lay down your weapons or face certain death. Nah, they didn't face certain death. And they didn't lay down their weapons. They brought in reinforcements from other Shiite neighboring countries. They didn't face certain death. And the Iranian people were told to stay home until the time was right, and then they were never called back out into the street. The time was never right. Let me take you back to March, a few weeks, 2 weeks after this speech was given. I want to show you some headlines from then. Let's make this a little bit bigger here. Take a look. IDF strikes besieged militia checkpoints, soldiers in Tehran. The Israeli Air Force, guided by IDF intelligence, struck the checkpoints and besieged militia members, furthering the degradation of Iranian internal security and besieged assets. The IDF struck and destroyed checkpoints and roadblocks set up by the Iranian regime's besieged militia in Tehran. The Israeli Air Force, guided by IDF intelligence, struck the checkpoints of the besieged. That's the stormtroopers. The besieged is like the enforcers, the stormtroopers in the streets, furthering the degradation of Iran's internal security and besieged assets. Several Iranian regime security personnel and besieged militia members were killed in a series of Israeli drone strikes on Tehran. See what happened? And what did it lead to? This is from the same week. Desertions, shortages, and army IRGC rift strain Iran's military. You started to see cracks in the actual regime itself. That's the IRGC. Iran's armed forces are facing acute supply shortages, rising desertions, and deepening friction. Right? One of the sharpest points of friction appears to involve medical support for wounded soldiers. There's no soldiers in Iran getting wounded now. The Americans aren't even attacking their personnel. Sources said that regular army units are suffering significant casualties. From what? From the Israelis. From the Israelis attacking them from the air. Sources said attempts by the Revolutionary Guards to mobilize reserve forces earlier this week produced limited results. Many of those summoned for service reportedly did not report to military centers. Instead, some individuals used the situation to leave their areas and assist family members in moving toward border regions in the hope of leaving the country. They were deserting. There were mass desertions beginning in the IRGC, in the besieged. They were getting hit from the air. They were getting killed. It was causing tension and chaos. That is what would, and then if that had continued, that now we're talking. And the Israelis around that time, towards the end of March, said that they would provide security from the air to the Iranian protesters when the time was right for them to come out, to protect them from the IRGC and the besieged, who they were degrading by the day. That's how you win. So when Trump is asked, what about the Iranian people getting them out? He says, well, if they come out into the street, they're going to get gunned down. And hey, we destroyed their navy and they have terrible inflation and they're really not doing well. Do you understand what I'm pointing out here? I don't want to dump on President Trump. It's great. What he's doing is wonderful. And he's the only president who's done anything about Iran. And it is what he's doing is weakening them and potentially brings them down. But I'm just frustrated here because the Iranian people have been forgotten about. When asked directly about them, Trump gave this answer that didn't really answer the question about what will really, he was basically asked, when are we going to provide the real conditions to help them take back their country? And his answer was basically, we're not going to. It was just, it's a pretty bad situation because they're going to get killed if they come into the street. That was his answer. So it's a little frustrating because this goes together with the Mojtaba conversation. It's exactly the same thing. It's about looking at the situation and saying, what is the path to victory? What is the most effective path to victory? And the Americans have decided that the effective path to victory, before it was kinetic and now it's economic, but they're leaving out the main piece of the puzzle. That it really is, if you think about what is the greatest threat to the regime? It's not the kinetic activity and it's not the economic activity. Those are all great. But the main threat is empowering the people. And in this video, we're talking about two critical ways to empower the Iranian people. Number one, lean into the instability that comes as a result of not knowing whether Mojtaba is alive or dead, or thinking that he's dead. Lean into those rumors. Yeah, let me explain why that's so important. Again, just let me add another ingredient to it. If they have to get into a conversation about succession at this time, with all the different factions at the top and all the stress going on, we already know that there's disagreements at the top. If they have to then start arguing about succession, it will cause so much instability at the top of the regime. In one of my conversations with Dr. David Wormser, we talked about this, where he was saying that the top level of the regime is kind of like mafia families, and they don't have it. They're not really in agreement about who should succeed Khamenei. And it would cause all kinds of chaos and all kinds of instability at the top, which would help destabilize the regime. this is actually, see, this is what people don't get. This is actually how you win. And then there's the issue of possibly getting them weapons, which I don't know the logistics of that and how feasible that is. That's a separate issue. I'm not qualified to have an opinion on that. Other than saying I wish they would have weapons. I don't know. But on this other issue of the IRGC and the Basij, why are we not going after these guys? The Americans, if the Americans stopped everything else they were doing and just started doing what the Israelis were doing in March, targeting the IRGC and the Basij, that is the path to victory. And I'm not saying that an objective of the war is regime change. It's not an objective. It's not a military objective. But if you want to achieve your objectives, if President Trump wants to get the straits opened, he wants to have the ballistic missile threat taken off the table. He wants the nuclear threat taken off the table. He wants the Straits of Hormuz opened. If those are the objectives of the war, and he has said that they are, the only way to actually reliably achieve those objectives is to collapse the regime, to bring it down. And this economic warfare could work if they can pull it off. It's very complicated. We already see there are numerous countries that are going to refuse to participate in it. But do the things that actually destabilize the regime from within, and that's the path to victory. And again, I don't want to sound negative about President Trump right now. I do appreciate everything he's done, and I've always cautioned us against, these, when he does what we want, we praise him to the heavens, and when he does what we don't want, we say that he's betrayed us. We have to calm down, keep a level head. But on these points, I'm going to keep hammering them. These are the things that can be done to actually destabilize the regime, to actually lead to victory. And I'm only praying that President Trump sees it and does them. And we continue to pray for the Iranian people. All right, God bless. Thanks for watching. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think. And please share this video with someone you know who you think would appreciate it. I would appreciate that very much. God bless.